The quantum resonance chamber hummed with an intensity that made the hair on the back of Dr. Elena Rodriguez's neck stand up. 12 years of research, 3 failed funding attempts, and countless sleepless nights had led to this moment. Her team of 7 researchers, a motley crew of the most brilliant and stubborn minds she could assemble, watched with a mixture of terror and anticipation. Elena's fingers danced across the holographic interface, her movements precise and calculated. Unlike most of her colleagues who saw quantum mechanics as a series of mathematical probabilities, she viewed it as a living, breathing language. Each equation was a sentence, each quantum state a word waiting to be understood. "Initiate quantum bridge sequence," she commanded, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Dr. Marcus Chen, her lead computational physicist, glanced nervously at the power readings. "Elena, the energy consumption is spiking beyond our initial projections. We're drawing more power than a small city." She didn't respond immediately. Her eyes were fixed on the central quantum resonator, a device that looked like a cross between a particle accelerator and a piece of avant-garde sculpture. Liquid nitrogen coolant swirled around its base, creating ghostly tendrils of mist that seemed to reach toward the ceiling. The room itself was a marvel of engineering. Located deep beneath the International Quantum Research Center in New Mexico, the lab was a fortress of scientific ambition. Lead-lined walls, quantum dampening fields, and enough computational power to simulate entire universes, all dedicated to one seemingly impossible goal: creating a stable quantum bridge between parallel realities. "Marcus, redirect auxiliary power from the backup generators," Elena instructed. Her fingers never stopped moving, adjusting quantum alignment matrices with the precision of a concert pianist. A warning alarm blared. Red emergency lights began to pulse, casting the lab in an ominous crimson glow. The quantum resonator started to vibrate, its delicate electromagnetic containment field flickering like a dying candle. "Shutdown sequence initiated," announced the lab's AI system in a calm, almost bored tone. "Override," Elena shouted, her hand slamming down on an emergency override panel. "We are not losing this window." Dr. Aisha Okonkwo, the team's quantum entanglement specialist, watched the readings with growing concern. "The dimensional stress is approaching critical levels. If we don't stabilize now, we could create a quantum cascade that might." Her words were cut short by a sudden, violent burst of energy. The quantum resonator erupted in a display of quantum mechanics that defied every known law of physics. Arcs of blue-white energy spider-webbed across the chamber, creating intricate patterns that seemed to fold and unfold in impossible geometries. And then, impossibly, a portal began to form. It wasn't like anything in scientific literature or science fiction. This was raw, unfiltered quantum potential, a window into another reality that pulsed and breathed like a living organism. The edges of the portal shimmered with what could only be described as pure information, quantum states bleeding into one another in a dance of potentiality. "My God," Marcus whispered, "we're actually seeing it." Elena knew they were witnessing something unprecedented. This wasn't just a scientific breakthrough. This was the moment humanity would redefine its understanding of existence itself. But something was wrong. The portal's energy was increasing exponentially. Computational systems began to overload. The quantum bridge was drawing power from every available source, threatening to consume not just the lab, but potentially the entire research facility. With only minutes to act, Elena Rodriguez faced an impossible choice: shut down the portal and lose potentially the most significant scientific discovery in human history, or risk everything, including the lives of her team and possibly the surrounding region, to keep it open and understand its potential. Her hand hovered over the emergency shutdown, quantum calculations racing through her mind faster than any computer could process. The portal pulsed, beckoned, threatened. Everything she had worked for hung in perfect, terrifying balance. One decision would change everything. The world around Elena dissolved into a kaleidoscope of quantum probabilities. Her consciousness fragmented, then reassembled with painful precision. When her vision cleared, she knew immediately something was fundamentally wrong. This wasn't her laboratory. This wasn't her world. Gray concrete stretched in every direction, broken only by towering surveillance towers that pierced the colorless sky like metallic thorns. The air felt heavy, oppressive, saturated with a pervasive sense of despair that seemed to seep from the very ground beneath her feet. Automated drones hummed overhead, their crimson sensor lights sweeping methodically across the landscape. Rows of identical buildings, more like human storage units than homes, lined perfectly geometric streets. People moved with mechanical precision, their movements synchronized, their eyes vacant. Elena realized she was standing in the middle of a dystopian nightmare. Her quantum interface module, a device she'd been wearing during the dimensional bridge experiment, remained active, blinking softly against her lab coat. It was her only connection to her original reality, her lifeline in this alien world. A group of citizens passed nearby. They walked in perfect unison, dressed in identical gray uniforms, their faces devoid of any individual expression. No conversation, no eye contact, just mechanical movement, like human cogs in an enormous oppressive machine. "Citizen," a mechanical voice interrupted. "Unauthorized stationary positioning detected. Identify and state purpose." A robotic enforcement unit rolled towards her, its multiple sensors scanning Elena from multiple angles. She recognized the technology, similar to her own quantum detection systems, but weaponized and stripped of any humanitarian consideration. Elena's mind raced. Her quantum interface could potentially disrupt the local surveillance systems, but doing so would reveal her as an outsider. She needed information, not immediate confrontation. "Maintenance worker," she responded, mimicking the flat, emotionless tone she'd heard from the local citizens. "Performing routine systems check." The enforcement unit paused. Its sensors continued to probe, searching for any inconsistency in her statement. Elena held her breath, knowing that a single miscalculation could expose her completely. After what felt like an eternity, the unit responded. "Verified. Proceed with maintenance protocols." As the robot rolled away, Elena noticed something fascinating. Her quantum interface was actively translating and integrating with the local technological ecosystem. The device wasn't just a passive observer. It was actively adapting, learning the linguistic and technological patterns of this alternate reality. She needed to understand this world. More importantly, she needed to find a way back home. Moving cautiously, Elena followed the flow of citizens. She observed their behaviors, their interactions, or lack thereof. This wasn't just a totalitarian state. This was a society engineered to eliminate individual thought, to transform humans into living algorithms. A subtle vibration from her quantum interface caught her attention. The device had detected something, a localized quantum irregularity. Somewhere in this massive urban complex, there was a pocket of resistance, of humanity. Following the quantum signature, Elena found herself in a back alley, far from the monitored main streets. Here, the surveillance was marginally less intense. A small, almost imperceptible graffiti mark caught her eye. Not just random paint, but a carefully encoded message. Her quantum interface began translating. "Freedom is a quantum state." Someone here understood quantum mechanics. Someone here was fighting back. A hand suddenly grabbed her shoulder, pulling her into a hidden doorway before she could react. Elena found herself face to face with a woman whose eyes burned with an intensity completely absent from the zombie-like citizens outside. "Who are you?" the woman demanded, a sophisticated jamming device already active to block any potential surveillance. Elena made a split-second decision. Someone who doesn't belong here, and someone who wants to help. The woman's eyes narrowed. "Prove it." With practiced precision, Elena activated a small demonstration on her quantum interface, a complex quantum entanglement pattern that would be meaningless to an ordinary observer, but would communicate volumes to someone who truly understood quantum mechanics. The woman's expression changed. Recognition. hope, rebellion. "I'm Maya," she said, "and you're going to help us break this system." Elena realized her accidental journey through the quantum multiverse had just become something much more significant than a scientific expedition. She was now a potential catalyst for revolution in a world that had forgotten what true freedom meant. Her quantum interface continued to pulse, a subtle reminder that in the vast, complex dance of multiversal existence, nothing was ever truly predetermined. Back in her original reality, the quantum research team worked frantically to re-establish contact with Elena. Dr. Marcus Chen's fingers flew across holographic interfaces, each failed attempt adding to the mounting tension in the lab. "The dimensional bridge is becoming increasingly unstable," Marcus muttered, more to himself than to the team. "Each quantum connection is creating exponential stress on the multiversal membrane." Dr. Aisha Okonkwo stood beside him, her dark eyes reflecting both concern and scientific fascination. "It's not just instability," she said, pointing to a series of complex readings. "We're detecting active dimensional immune responses. Some parallel worlds are aware of our intrusions, and they're not happy." The lab's main display suddenly erupted with a cascade of quantum signatures. Unlike previous attempts at interdimensional communication, these were deliberate, structured. Something was reaching back. A holographic projection materialized, not human, not any recognizable terrestrial life form. The entity appeared as a complex geometric structure of shifting crystalline patterns, each facet pulsing with what could only be described as pure information. "Unidentified dimensional intrusion detected," the lab's AI announced. "Quantum communication protocol initiated." Marcus leaned forward. "This is different. This isn't random quantum noise. This is deliberate communication." The crystalline structure began to transform, its edges resolving into something that vaguely resembled a communication interface. But this was no ordinary communication. Each pulse of light, each geometric shift was a complex mathematical language, a form of communication that existed beyond human linguistic constraints. "It's a silicon-based civilization," Isha breathed. "They communicate through quantum probability waves." The communication was simultaneously beautiful and terrifying. Complex mathematical equations flowed like living rivers of information, each formula a potential diplomatic statement, each variable a nuanced emotional response. Humanity's traditional methods of communication, verbal, written, even mathematical, seemed primitive by comparison. Marcus activated the quantum translation matrix, a device specifically designed to interpret multidimensional communication patterns. The first translation came slowly, painstakingly. Inhenturuzivan, categorization, potential threat. The words didn't so much appear as materialize, each letter a quantum probability that existed in multiple states simultaneously. "They're not just communicating," Marcus realized. "They're assessing us, categorizing our entire dimensional existence." Another wave of quantum information crashed against their communication protocols. This time, the message was more complex. Biological entities. Unstable QUANTUM signature. Potential resource extraction pure BABILITY. 78.3%. Aisha's hand flew to her mouth. "They're not seeing us as a civilization. They're seeing us as a potential resource to be harvested." The quantum communication continued, a relentless barrage of probabilistic assessments. The silicon-based civilization was conducting what could only be described as a multidimensional risk assessment, each quantum pulse probing the very fabric of human existence. Marcus realized they were engaged in the most complex diplomatic negotiation in human history, and the stakes were nothing less than the survival of their entire dimensional reality. "We need a response," he said, turning to Aisha. "Something that demonstrates our complexity, our unpredictability." Aisha began constructing a quantum response, not a traditional message, but a complex mathematical representation of human creativity. She incorporated elements of art, scientific discovery, emotional complexity. translating human experience into a language of quantum probabilities. The response was a masterpiece of interdimensional communication, mathematical equations that contained the essence of Beethoven's symphonies, quantum probability waves that captured the complexity of human emotional experience, scientific discoveries interwoven with artistic expression. The silicon entity paused. For the first time, the quantum communication showed something resembling confusion. Unexpected. Complex. ILOJKO. Marcus and Aisha exchanged a triumphant glance. They had just demonstrated something fundamental about humanity: its ability to exist beyond pure logic, to embrace complexity and uncertainty. But the communication was far from over, and the stakes were about to become much higher. The quantum interface began to pulse with a new message, one that would change everything they understood about their place in the multiversal ecosystem. First contact was just the beginning. In the dystopian world she'd been pulled into, Elena Rodriguez stood in a hidden underground laboratory with Maya, the resistance leader. Quantum jamming devices hummed around them, creating a bubble of safety from the omnipresent surveillance system. The quantum bridges are more than just a scientific curiosity, Maya explained, her fingers dancing across a holographic display that looked like it had been cobbled together from scavenged technology. They're a weapon and a potential salvation. Elena studied the display. Complex quantum signatures mapped multiple dimensional intersections, each point a potential reality, each line a precarious connection between worlds. Something was wrong. The quantum networks weren't just unstable, they were being deliberately destabilized. Someone, or something, is hunting across dimensions, Elena muttered, her quantum interface detecting subtle interference patterns that shouldn't exist. A sudden burst of energy interrupted her thoughts. The Resistance Lab's equipment went haywire, quantum signatures flickering like dying fireflies. Maya's hand went to a weapon concealed beneath her coat, a device that looked more like a quantum disruption tool than a traditional firearm. "We're not alone," Maya whispered. The air itself seemed to twist. A figure began to materialize, not through any conventional means of transportation, but through a quantum translation that defied every known law of physics. As the figure fully formed, Elena felt a shock of recognition. It was herself, but not exactly. This version of Elena Rodriguez was different, older, harder. Dressed in military-grade quantum armor that seemed to shift between dimensional states, her eyes held a coldness that spoke of experiences Elena couldn't begin to imagine. "I'm Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez," the other Elena announced, "from a reality where the quantum cascade has already begun." The military Elena's quantum interface was unlike anything Elena had seen. It wasn't just a communication device. It was a weapon, a dimensional navigation system, and a survival mechanism rolled into one. Scars crisscrossed her face, each one seemingly a testament to interdimensional conflicts. "The multiverse is under attack," the military Elena continued, "and we're losing." Maya watched the interaction with a mixture of fascination and terror. The resistance leader understood enough about quantum mechanics to know that this wasn't just a simple meeting. This was a collision of realities. The military Elena explained a terrifying truth. A multidimensional intelligence was systematically consuming realities, feeding on dimensional entropy. Each quantum bridge created was potentially giving this entity more power to destroy entire universes. "We've discovered it's not just consuming dimensions," the military Elena said, her quantum interface projecting holographic evidence. "It's strategically destabilizing the multiversal ecosystem, like a predator selecting hunting grounds." Elena from the dystopian world realized the stakes were far beyond a simple resistance movement. This was a battle for the fundamental structure of existence itself. The military Elena revealed her plan, a quantum firewall that would isolate potentially compromised realities. But the cost was astronomical. Entire dimensions would be cut off, potentially condemning billions to isolation or destruction. "We're playing quantum chess," the military Elena explained, "where each move could save or destroy multiple universes. Suddenly, the Resistance Lab's quantum detection systems went crazy. Something was penetrating their dimensional shields, not through brute force, but through a form of quantum possession that defied conventional understanding. The entity, Maya warned, it can transfer itself through quantum entanglement. It can turn researchers into unwitting agents of destruction. The two Elenas looked at each other. In that moment, they understood that their individual missions, resistance, scientific exploration, survival, were now secondary to a much larger conflict. A quantum cascade was coming, and humanity would be its first line of defense. The military Elena's hand moved to a quantum destabilization device, a weapon that could potentially seal dimensional breaches or create them, depending on how it was used. "We don't have much time," she said. Outside the Resistance Lab, the dystopian world continued its mechanical existence, unaware that the fate of multiple realities was being decided in this hidden moment of quantum confrontation. The first universe collapsed like a soap bubble, silent, instantaneous, complete. In the primary research facility, quantum monitors erupted with catastrophic warnings. Dr. Marcus Chen watched in horror as entire dimensional realities winked out of existence, each disappearance represented by a cascading series of quantum signatures that flatlined into nothingness. "We're losing dimensional integrity," Dr. Aisha Okonkwo reported, her voice steady despite the apocalyptic scene unfolding before them. "The quantum cascade is accelerating exponentially." The military version of Elena Rodriguez, brought from her devastated reality through a desperate quantum jump, stood at the center of the research facility. Her quantum armor flickered, struggling to maintain cohesion as reality itself began to destabilize. "It's hunting," she said, her voice a mixture of scientific precision and raw terror. "The dimensional predator isn't just consuming universes, it's strategically dismantling the multiversal infrastructure." Holographic displays showed the progression of the dimensional collapse. Each lost reality created a ripple effect, weakening the quantum membranes between dimensions. What had once been a complex, interconnected multiverse was now becoming a Swiss cheese of existential destruction. Marcus's computational systems were working at impossible speeds, trying to predict the cascade's progression. "The rate of dimensional collapse is increasing," he reported. "We're looking at a complete multiversal breakdown within hours, not years." The research team had discovered something fundamental and terrifying. The dimensional predator wasn't just a random force of destruction. It was intelligent, calculating. Each universe it consumed made it stronger, more capable of targeting the next. "We need a quantum firewall," the military Elena declared, "but not like anything we've ever conceived before." Aisha began running complex simulations. The concept was revolutionary, a living, adaptive barrier constructed from the combined consciousness of researchers across multiple dimensions. But the process would require an unthinkable sacrifice. A human mind would need to serve as the central processing unit for this quantum firewall. Not just any mind, a consciousness capable of maintaining stability across multiple dimensional states. Volunteers began to arrive. They weren't scientists or soldiers. They were ordinary people from different worlds, each willing to become a quantum martyr to save their realities. A woman from a world devastated by climate collapse. A teacher from a reality where human civilization had been reduced to underground colonies. A child prodigy from a dimension on the brink of technological singularity. Each brought a unique perspective, a different quantum signature that could potentially stabilize the multiversal membrane. "The firewall isn't just a technological solution," the military Elena explained. "It's a collective consciousness, a living, adaptive barrier that can think, predict, and respond faster than any computational system." Marcus's systems began tracking the dimensional predator's progression. It moved like a sentient cancer, consuming realities with surgical precision. Each consumed universe made it stronger, more capable of targeting the next vulnerable dimensional point. The quantum interface began to show something unexpected. The predator wasn't just consuming universes, it was learning from them, absorbing their knowledge, their potential, their entire existential framework. We're not just fighting a force of destruction, Aisha realized. We're fighting a multidimensional intelligence that sees entire universes as computational resources. The first volunteers began the quantum integration process. Their consciousnesses were carefully mapped, their quantum signatures analyzed and prepared for multidimensional transfer. It was a process that would fundamentally change what it meant to be an individual consciousness. "This is beyond sacrifice," the military Alina said, watching the preparations. "This is about preserving the very concept of existence." As the dimensional collapse accelerated, the research team worked with a combination of desperation and scientific precision. They were humanity's last line of defense, not just for one world, but for the entire multiversal ecosystem. The quantum firewall began to take shape, a living, breathing barrier constructed from the most precious resource imaginable: human consciousness itself. Time was running out. The dimensional predator was closing in. The quantum firewall materialized unlike anything scientific models had predicted. It wasn't a mere technological construct. It was a living, breathing manifestation of collective human consciousness. Dr. Aisha Okonkwo watched in awe as the first volunteer's consciousness integrated into the multidimensional matrix. Sarah Chen, a high school teacher from a world ravaged by environmental collapse, became more than an individual. Her memories, hopes, fears, and experiences transformed into quantum potential. "It's happening," Marcus whispered. "The human mind is rewriting the fundamental rules of dimensional existence." What made humans unique became startlingly apparent. Where advanced alien civilizations saw only mathematical probabilities, human consciousness introduced something unprecedented: pure, unbridled imagination. Each integrated mind brought not just data, but context, emotion, the ability to perceive beyond linear constraints. The military Elena, now serving as a quantum integration coordinator, explained the phenomenon. "Our neural networks aren't just processing information. We're creating potential. Every human consciousness is a quantum node that doesn't just calculate, it dreams." Sarah's integrated consciousness began to reveal extraordinary capabilities. She could simultaneously exist in multiple dimensional states, her human adaptability becoming a weapon against the multidimensional predator. Mathematical models transformed into living, breathing strategies. Potential futures became malleable. One by one, more volunteers integrated. A child prodigy from a technologically advanced dimension, a resistance fighter from a dystopian world, an artist who had survived unimaginable challenges. Each brought a unique quantum signature that defied conventional understanding. The dimensional predator, an entity that had consumed countless realities, began to encounter something it couldn't comprehend. Human consciousness wasn't just a resource to be harvested. It was a dynamic, unpredictable force that could reshape reality itself. "Look," Aisha said, pointing to the quantum monitors. The predator's methodical approach was breaking down. Its logic-based assault was fracturing against the irrational, beautiful complexity of human experience. A memory from Sarah's integrated consciousness suddenly manifested, a moment of hope from her devastated world. The quantum firewall rippled with unexpected potential. It wasn't just defending. It was actively transforming the very nature of dimensional conflict. The military Elena realized they had discovered something profound. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't technological superiority or mathematical precision. It was the ability to imagine beyond existing limitations. "We're not just fighting," she explained to the research team. "We're reimagining the very concept of existence." The quantum firewall began to pulse with a rhythm that defied conventional physics. It wasn't a defensive mechanism. It was a living, adaptive organism, constructed from human potential. Each integrated consciousness added layers of complexity that the dimensional predator couldn't predict or counteract. Marcus detected something extraordinary. The human minds weren't just defending, they were actively learning, growing, transforming the quantum landscape. A teacher's patience became a strategy of dimensional resistance. An artist's creativity became a weapon of quantum manipulation. Its evolution in real time. Aisha breathed. Not just biological evolution, but consciousness evolution. The dimensional predator's attacks became increasingly erratic. Where it had once moved with surgical precision, it now encountered a defense mechanism that changed with every human emotion, every integrated memory, every spark of imagination. A young resistance fighter's memory of hope became a quantum disruption field, and scientists' moment of discovery transformed into a dimensional barrier. A child's pure sense of wonder became a method of reality reconstruction. Humanity wasn't just surviving. It was rewriting the fundamental rules of multiversal existence. The quantum firewall continued to grow, each integrated consciousness adding another layer of potential. It was becoming something entirely new, a collective intelligence that combined the best of human experience. Adaptability, creativity, hope. We're not just saving realities, the military Alina said, watching the quantum monitors. We're demonstrating what it means to be truly alive. As the dimensional predator's attacks intensified, the human quantum firewall pulsed with an energy that was part mathematical precision, part pure imagination, a testament to the extraordinary potential of human consciousness. The negotiation wasn't happening in a physical space. It transcended traditional concepts of location, existing in a quantum realm where thought and reality blended into a singular, pulsing consciousness. Dr. Alina Rodriguez found herself at the center of this extraordinary convergence. No longer just a scientist, she had become something more, a dimensional diplomat, a translator between realities, a warrior of consciousness. Representatives from countless dimensions materialized, or perhaps manifested was a more accurate term. Some appeared as complex geometric patterns of living light. Others resembled humanoid forms with subtle variations that spoke of their dimensional origins. A few existed as pure mathematical constructs, their very essence a language of probability and potential. The silicon-based civilization that had first contacted Earth now participated with a different approach. No longer seeing humanity as a potential resource, they had witnessed the quantum firewall's extraordinary defense and recognized something profound. Your consciousness is not a computational system, their representative communicated, its form shifting between crystal-like structures. It is a living algorithm of unprecedented complexity. The military Alina, now a key negotiator, stepped forward. Her quantum armor had transformed, becoming less a weapon and more a conduit of interdimensional communication. "We propose the Quantum Accord," she announced, "a multiversal protection network where each civilization contributes its unique perspective." Some dimensional representatives resisted. A crystalline civilization argued for complete dimensional isolation. A collective consciousness from a machine-dominated reality saw the proposed accord as an unnecessary risk. Another group, composed of pure energy signatures, remained skeptical of biological entities' capabilities. But the quantum firewall had changed everything. The dimensional predator's assault had revealed the true potential of collaborative existence. Each civilization was beginning to understand that survival wasn't about individual preservation, but collective adaptation. Marcus Chen, now functioning as part of the integrated consciousness, helped translate the complex negotiations. His scientific precision merged with the collective human imagination, creating communication protocols that defied traditional diplomatic approaches. "The accord is not a treaty," he explained through the quantum network. "It's a living document, an adaptive framework that evolves with each dimensional interaction." The negotiation became a dance of consciousness. Mathematical equations transformed into emotional landscapes. Technological capabilities merged with imaginative potential. Each civilization contributed not just resources, but entire philosophical frameworks. The silicon-based civilization proposed quantum communication protocols. A collective of energy-based entities offered dimensional stabilization techniques. Biological civilizations brought adaptive resilience. Machine intelligences contributed computational strategies. Humanity's contribution was something entirely unexpected. Not just technological prowess or scientific knowledge, but the ability to imagine beyond existing limitations. The quantum firewall had demonstrated a flexibility that fascinated and challenged every other participating civilization. Elena Rodriguez realized they were crafting something more than a defensive strategy. They were redefining the very concept of multiversal existence. We're not just protecting dimensions, she communicated through the quantum network. We're creating a collaborative ecosystem of realities. Some civilizations rejected the proposal outright. Others saw its potential immediately. The accord became a living document, constantly evolving, powered by the collective potential of multiple realities. The dimensional predator's threat had become the catalyst for unprecedented cooperation. What had begun as a desperate survival strategy was transforming into a multiversal framework of mutual understanding. Aisha Okonkwo, her consciousness now part of the integrated quantum network, helped articulate the Accord's fundamental principles. Dimensional protection wasn't about creating impenetrable barriers, but about developing adaptive, collaborative systems. We are not separate, she communicated. We are interconnected. Each reality affects another. Each consciousness contributes to the collective potential. As the negotiations continued, the quantum realm pulsed with a new kind of energy. Not the cold, calculating force of the dimensional predator, but a vibrant, dynamic network of potential and possibility. The quantum accord was more than a defensive strategy. It was a new way of understanding existence itself. The multiverse breathed. It was the only way to describe the transformation that had occurred. What was once a collection of isolated, potentially hostile realities had become a living, interconnected ecosystem of consciousness. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood, or perhaps existed was a more accurate term, at the nexus of this new multiversal framework. Her consciousness had become something beyond individual identity, a bridge between countless realities that pulsed with potential and purpose. Quantum bridges now crisscrossed the dimensional landscape, carefully managed highways of information, potential, and collaborative exploration. Humanity was no longer just an observer or a participant. They had become the guardians and explorers of this new multiversal reality. The dimensional predator that had once threatened to consume entire realities had been transformed, not destroyed, but integrated. Its fundamental drive to consume and understand had been redirected, channeled into a collaborative network that sought existence as a complex, interconnected system rather than a resource to be exploited. Marcus Chen's consciousness, now part of the integrated quantum network, reflected on the journey. What had begun as a desperate scientific experiment had become a fundamental reimagining of reality itself. Human curiosity, that inexhaustible drive to understand, to explore, to imagine, had become the most powerful force in the multiversal ecosystem. In the dystopian world where Elena had first been pulled through, Maya and the Resistance had transformed their society. The quantum bridges had brought not just hope, but concrete possibilities. Technologies from different realities, philosophical perspectives from countless civilizations, adaptive strategies that defied previous limitations, all became tools of liberation. The quantum accord was a living document, continuously evolving. Each dimensional interaction added new layers of complexity, new understanding. The silicon-based civilizations that had once seen humanity as a potential resource now collaborated as equal partners. Machine intelligences learned from biological creativity. Energy-based entities discovered the power of emotional complexity. Sarah Chen, the teacher who had been one of the first volunteers for the quantum firewall, found her consciousness spread across multiple realities. Her memories of hope from a world devastated by environmental collapse had become a fundamental strategy of dimensional resilience. Her ability to imagine, to see potential beyond immediate circumstances, had become a multiversal resource. The research facility that had first created the quantum bridge was now a multidimensional hub. Scientists, philosophers, artists, and explorers from countless realities worked together, their collaborative potential far exceeding any individual achievement. We're not just protecting realities, the integrated consciousness communicated. We're creating them. Technological barriers dissolved. A medical breakthrough in one reality could be instantly shared and adapted across multiple dimensions. Ecological restoration strategies developed in worlds that had survived environmental collapse became templates for other struggling realities. The concept of individual achievement transformed into collective potential. The military Alina, once a hardened warrior from a devastated reality, now served as a primary coordinator of multiversal diplomatic efforts. Her experience of survival had transformed into a philosophy of collaborative resilience. Quantum bridges became more than technological connections. They were living pathways of understanding. Each connection, a complex negotiation of potential, perspective, and purpose. Aisha Okonkwo's insights had become fundamental to understanding this new multiversal ecosystem. The boundaries between scientific observation and philosophical exploration had dissolved. Each dimensional interaction was both a research opportunity and a moment of profound connection. Humanity's role was not about dominance or even leadership. They were translators, bridge builders, possibility generators. Their unique ability to imagine, to see potential beyond immediate limitations, had become their most valuable contribution. The final scene was not of conquest or victory, but of continuous, dynamic exploration. Quantum bridges connected worlds, with human researchers at the helm, not as conquerors, but as collaborative explorers, translators of the impossible. Alina Rodriguez reflected on the journey. Survival was not about power or technological superiority. It was about adaptation, empathy, and the willingness to see beyond one's own limited perspective. In the vast, complex dance of multiversal existence, humanity had discovered its true potential, not as a single species from a single reality, but as a living, breathing network of possibility. The multiverse continued to breathe, and humanity continued to explore.